And we're going to meet and talk about either Antonio, Robert, or Carla. And I have some information for all of you. I have a general description of who they are, some information about their big, audacious future plan and goal, and I have some scenarios for employment, education, and independent living for each of them. Then I have some questions that I want you to work on in your groups. What additional assessment would be helpful? What information isn't here that would be helpful to have here? What course of study should the student participate in order to achieve these goals? What should they be doing for the remainder of high school? Should they just be doing a regular high school curriculum? Should they be doing curriculum plus vocational? Should they be doing functional job training? What should they be doing? Then I want you to provide me with 2 transition activities in each of the 3 areas that are measurable and in support of the outcome. And then we're going to also talk about what agencies or organizations may you want to connect this student to in order to make sure that we have the full support of the community in meeting these targeted objectives. So Antonio, a youth who plans to attend a 4-year college, several areas of interest and skill, strong academic student, struggles with the social aspects of school and community environments, social challenges, difficulties with handwriting and organization have resulted in eligibility for services. Antonio was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at age 7. So I need 2 groups for Antonio. Robert is a youth who, like many of his age, dreams of being an independent adult, strong interests that drive career goals and social life, struggles with important skill areas necessary for independence as an adult. He was diagnosed with autism at age 3, received specialized instruction and services, and would like to develop his automotive skills to be able to make simple repairs on cars and work part-time. So that's Robert. Then we have Carla. Carla is a young lady who found her interest early in life, and it's music. Music is a part of her connection to the world around her. She struggles in areas of independent living and academics, receives specialized instruction, therapy, and supports since she was in preschool, requires specialized instruction in an alternate curriculum, and she wants to have the opportunity to do meaningful work in their community with supports. So what I would like to do is to spend a few minutes with each of the students. So Antonio, Robert, and Carla. I'd like to spend a few minutes and have each of the groups just share some of the activities that they came up with. So let's start with Antonio. So if you remember, Antonio was our college-bound student. What were some of the challenges that you guys faced in trying to come up with your plan?
Okay, well, in terms of Antonio, who's college-bound, well, we got a lot of help. So first, we figured he would need to, just like any other college-bound student, he would need to investigate what type of environment or college environment would be best for him. So he would go to his guidance counselor and do all the things that a normal kid would do in terms of figuring out if there was a special, what type of special groups, accommodations would be available for him at different campuses, just to start out the college search. And then in terms of vocational or academic assessments for him, we know he's strong and he wants to be an aerospace engineer. That's not a lightweight discipline to go into. So let's just see if you really can do that, even though he's shown himself to be confident in that area. And then what he struggles with mostly is socially. He wants to live in a dorm by himself. So again, just seeing what assessments can be done and what support systems can be in place that would help him in that way while he's in high school before he makes that transition on to college.
I think that's great. Were there any challenges with some of the information or that your group faced in trying to figure out what kinds of things you would move forward with?
Well, there's just a lack of information in terms of, I mean, there's a huge gap in information in terms of, I guess if you were with Antonio and you watched the IAEP grow as he has grown up, it would be easier to, but I saw this and I was overwhelmed because the gaps were like, what?
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's lack of context. So I was challenged from the beginning. I sat here just overwhelmed and stumped, like,
Okay.
I don't know what to do.
Great. I do think you guys came up with really good activities in terms of trying to look at what were some of his wishes for his outcome and how do we get him there, and starting with, well, what kind of resources will he have available in the college setting to support him, and the other suggestions that you had I think were great. Usually we would take some of those goals and turn them into measurable goals for the IEP so that as you move through those activities, we start to get some data response from the school district. And that helps to inform then the next IEP and transition plan for Antonio so that we can continue to tighten it up and get him closer to college. Let's start with this group over here. What were some of the challenges that you faced trying to plan for Robert, and then what were the activities that you looked at?
We didn't know his exact age, the skill sets that he had already had. We didn't know any testing information and the curriculum that he was currently in, although we might have made some assumptions. But it would have been nice to know whether or not he was alternately assessed and it was under the extended standards. We needed a lot more assessment information, so we wanted to know how he was informally through possibly a questionnaire on his daily living skills, attendance. It seems like his motivation is good, and we looked at his positive attributes. He's social, motivated, he has that automotive interest, and he likes swimming. And but he does need some assistance with independence, and he needs some social skill development. But we also need to know where his ability is on car knowledge. He's interested in it, but the reading level for manuals, even if it's small engine repair, might be very technical. And so it would be nice to know what the reading level would be and what kind of on-the-job exposure he's had, and maybe what his manual dexterity is. We thought for post-secondary education, of course, he still needs to strengthen some academic skills if he wants to read those technical manuals. But we thought he might also want to review some options for work training activities to make sure that that's an area that he wants to go in so he can see what it's like in the day of a small engine repair in a car shop. And then also for employment, interview workers in a field of his interest and work on some of those soft skills, because he's probably in need of step-by-step directions and how you could do those step-by-step directions without the technical wording. And then daily living, budgeting, money management, maybe a checklist for laundry to make sure it's clean and ready to work.
So we have another Robert group here on this side.
In addition to what was already mentioned about the assessments, we discussed about having an executive functioning assessment to see what his levels of being able to do his independent daily living skills. And that would also carry over for his job skills as well. We talked about the communication skills, find out whether or not his type of job he's interested in would require him interacting with the public. And if so, his communication skills would have to be higher than not interacting with the general public. And also an assessment about his physical stamina and being able to adapt to the different environment of a car shop. Then for the transition skills, we talked about doing a vocational program through the school system after completing the 4 years of the traditional quote-unquote high school, to make sure his academic levels were up to being able to function in reading the manuals and that kind of thing. And it's also difficult to transition midday from academic to vocational programs, so perhaps that would assist in being able to finish the academic skills. Then job shadowing. Do job shadowing and then be able to describe what the different steps were for the different repairs that he observed. That would be a good indication of whether or not he was capable of
Sort of building the knowledge necessary to get to that point. Great. I love that every group so far has focused on what you don't know yet. And I do that, and I say that because all we've talked about today was data and making sure that we're making decisions based on who we are dealing with and what we know and what their present levels are. And you're absolutely right. There was not even close to enough information to be able to write a measurable goal and to be able to come up with targeted kinds of interventions. What I'm also hearing is a lot of creativity. And I like that too, because what that says to me is that you're willing to look outside the universe of what is typical to find opportunities for kids. And so I'm going to turn to my Carla people. There was a lot of interest in Carla.
We had a lot of questions about things we needed to know. For instance, what is her musical ability? Does she just like music, or does she play an instrument? And we didn't really have any kind of real information.
Right. We didn't even know if it was vocal or instrumental.
Right.
If it was a like or if there was a proficiency.
And then what are her actual physical abilities? Did she say she was nonverbal, or can she communicate in some other way? There's just a lot that was unanswered with that. What are her feelings toward her career? Because it said that she likes this. She might, what does she want to do? Maybe she likes music but doesn't want to do a career anything to do with music. We don't know if has asked that, or we don't have that information.
Some other thoughts from one of my other groups.
And the write-up said she has intellectual disabilities, and I am curious to know whether she can follow directions. And also I'd like to know about her physical abilities and whether she's able to read. And the assessment part, we came up with PT and OT assessment and interest survey again, and career cluster assessment, and speech and social communication. Whether and I think there's a clue that she doesn't like to mingle with people, but we would like to know how much she liked to mingle with people. And
what would she like to do outside of school and work and everything else? So we looked at, she likes music, she likes movement. If she's in a faith-based community, would she want to get involved in their choir? Could she be in a program for dance? And we looked at that for post-secondary education, along with a job, working someplace like Jamboree, where she has movement with little kids and music and can do all the things that she already states that she likes. Whatever we know about her abilities, we can adapt to that as well. So looking at just the fun stuff, that's always easy. She could join, leisurely gym, or music theory could be a program for post-secondary or something like that. So we just kind of focused on that. Residential-wise, it says she likes her personal space, but they plan to put her in a residential home, and you don't get much personal space in a residential home. So that concerned me about where they're actually thinking about having her live, and nothing on the independent space that would give her time.
A similar thing about Robert. We were looking at, for example, employment is a job coach that would give help them with step-by-step instruction. Maybe he may not have the ability to read manuals or do a diagnostic or something like that, but he can do things like oil changes, he can do detail, but he can develop a checklist where because you don't want to do an oil change, we can put you oil.
Right.
So, we felt that was helpful.
Yeah. And I want to build on a comment that you made. You're talking about incorporating and using a job coach. So there are a lot of organizations that do use job coaches as part of transition planning. And usually that's one of the sort of end stages of transition planning, is where we're actually in a job with a job coach teaching skills that we hope will lead to permanent employment. Another sort of client of mine is a young lady with autism. She wanted to be in fashion. She was a fashionista, loved clothes, jewelry, could put an outfit together. She took a traditional high school curriculum with supports and is taking a couple of classes in community college, but with opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities, got a job at TJ Maxx. And she had a job coach through OOD for 12 weeks. And her job at TJ Maxx is to support the dressing room. TJ Maxx found when she was working in the dressing room, their sales went up by 20% because she would tell all the ladies how fabulous they looked and everything. And did they see the scarf? And she would go and get the scarf that would look really good with that outfit. And so they gave her some flexibility there, and it really, she's been working there now for 7 years. She loves it. And, it's with the job coach, and that job coach really had to outline for her the steps for when a customer comes to you, what do you do? She has autism, very difficult for her to make eye contact, very difficult for her to manage, when somebody was bringing too many garments. How do you manage that? Because people get upset. But with the job coach, they were able to coach her through those situations. And I think that that piece of it kind of comes at the end, because we hope that the job coach teaches the skill necessary that the employer says, we're good without you. Thank you, job coach. Now go. Now, she has access, if she ever wants to move out of the position that she is in, to a different position within the store. And TJ Maxx has offered her other positions within the store. She has declined them because she really likes the job she's doing. But they have offered to train her on the registers. They've offered to train her in stock. They've offered to train her in merchandising, which is, putting the outfits together on the mannequins. And she has declined. But that they're willing to then go back to OOD, bring in the job coach again, support her in training. That's how this process really works. And so I appreciate that you brought up the job coach, because that's where we want all of our kids to get, is competitive employment. And so thank you. And so I am going to leave off this program with a thank you, because you guys did a great job on this exercise. I really appreciate how willing you were to kind of talk about what you didn't know, and how we can access more information, be creative, don't be afraid to think outside the box, and pay attention to specifics. So thank you, you've been amazing. I do know that we have some resources that we want to share before we break for the night, so I'll turn this over to you. Thank you.